Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Practice with Julia. I'm Julia, your host for today. And I'm really happy you're here with me again. If you're new to this channel, let me quickly tell you something. We upload English learning videos regularly to help you improve your English step by step, naturally, calmly, and effectively. In today's lesson, you're going to practice something extremely important, something that can truly transform your fluency. We are going to do daily English listening practice at the B1 and B2 level. And at the same time, you will learn conversational English that you can actually use in real life, not just textbook English, not just isolated sentences, but natural, to flowing English that people really speak every single day. This episode is designed to help you train your ears, train your brain, and train your speaking confidence all at once. You will listen to real lifestyle conversations, daily routines, common situations, opinions, small talk, and natural expressions. And as you listen, I want you to relax. Focus on the rhythm of English. Notice how sentences connect, how ideas flow, how pronunciation changes slightly in natural speech. We will explore everyday situations like talking about your morning routine, discussing work or study, making plans with friends, sharing opinions, solving small problems, and expressing feelings. But we won't just listen. You will also practice. I will guide you through speaking exercises, short response activities, repetition practice, and mini conversational tasks, all inside this lesson. By the end of this video, you will feel more comfortable understanding natural English at a normal pace. You will learn useful conversational phrases, and most importantly, you will build the confidence to respond without translating everything in your head. Remember, fluency doesn't come from memorizing grammar rules only. It comes from daily exposure, daily listening, daily speaking. Even small daily practice can create big results over time. Before we begin, if you truly want to improve your English listening and conversational skills, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future practice sessions like this. Now, take a deep breath. Maybe grab a notebook if you like writing down new expressions, or simply focus and listen carefully. Are you ready? Let's begin our English listening practice together. Today, we are going to begin with something very simple, but very powerful. Daily life English, the kind of English that people actually use every day, at home, at work, at school, in small conversations, and even in quiet moments when they are thinking to themselves. If you are at a B1 or B2 level, this is exactly where your progress becomes real. Because now, you don't just want to understand English. You want to live in English. Think in English. Respond naturally, without panic, without long pauses. Let's start with a normal morning situation. Imagine you wake up at 7 a.m., your alarm rings, and you slowly open your eyes. What do you usually say in your mind? Maybe you think, I don't want to wake up yet, or just 5 more minutes, or okay, I need to get up now. These small sentences, these tiny thoughts, are part of conversational English because real English is not always long and complicated. Sometimes it's short, emotional, natural. Now I want you to listen carefully. I will describe a short daily routine, and after that, you will repeat some parts and then answer a few simple questions. Julia wakes up at 7 a.m. Every weekday. She doesn't jump out of bed immediately. She usually stays in bed for a few minutes, checking her phone, reading messages, and slowly preparing herself for the day. After that, she gets up, washes her face, brushes her teeth, and makes a cup of coffee. While drinking her coffee, she looks out the window and thinks about what she needs to do that day. Now pause for a moment and repeat after me, slowly, clearly. I usually stay in bed for a few minutes. I check my phone before I get up. I think about my day while drinking coffee. Good. Now let's make it personal. Answer these questions in full sentences, not just one word. What time do you usually wake up? Do you get up immediately, or do you stay in bed for a while? What is the first thing you do in the morning? Take your time. Speak out loud, even if you are alone. Speaking is important. Your brain needs to connect listening and speaking together. Now let's make the situation a little more natural. Imagine Julia has a busy day ahead. She has an important meeting at work, and she feels slightly nervous. While getting dressed, she thinks, I hope everything goes well. I prepared a lot, so it should be fine. Just stay calm. Notice these expressions. I hope everything goes well. It should be fine. Just stay calm. These are common conversational phrases. People use them all the time, especially before something important. Repeat after me. I hope everything goes well. It should be fine. Just stay calm. Now let's practice using them in a different context. Imagine you have an English exam tomorrow. What can you say? Or maybe, I hope everything goes well. I studied hard. It should be fine. Just stay calm and focus. You see, conversational English is flexible. Once you learn one phrase, you can use it in many situations. Now let's move to another daily life situation. Arriving at work or school. Julia arrives at her office at 9 a.m. She greets her colleague and says, Good morning. How are you? Her colleague replies, I'm good. Just a bit tired today. How about you? Julia smiles and says, I'm okay. I didn't sleep very well, but I'll survive. Listen to that expression. I'll survive. It doesn't mean something dramatic. It simply means I'm tired, but I'll manage. I'll be fine. Repeat after me. I'm a bit tired today. I didn't sleep very well. I'll survive. Now respond to this question. If someone asks you, How are you today? What would you say? Don't just say, I'm fine. Try something more natural. Maybe, I'm doing well, just a little busy, or I'm good, a bit tired though, or I'm okay, can't complain. Yes, can't complain is another very common conversational phrase. It means things are not perfect, but they're not bad either. Let's continue the scene. During the meeting, Julia shares her ideas. At first, she feels nervous, but once she starts speaking, she feels more confident. After the meeting, her manager says, That was a great presentation. Julia replies, Thank you. I was a bit nervous at first. Notice how honest and simple that sentence is. I was a bit nervous at first. In real conversations, people often share small feelings like this. It makes communication more natural. Now I want you to practice describing a past experience. Think about the last time you felt nervous, maybe during a presentation, an interview, or a difficult conversation. Now say out loud, I was a bit nervous at first, but, and complete the sentence with your own ending, maybe. But then I relaxed, or, but then I felt more confident, or, but then everything went smoothly. Excellent. Now let's slow down a little and focus on listening comprehension. I will read a short paragraph again, and after that, I will ask you a few questions. Julia had an important meeting this morning. She felt slightly nervous before it started, but she reminded herself to stay calm. During the meeting, she shared her ideas clearly, and her colleagues listened carefully. After it finished, she felt proud of herself. Now answer these questions out loud. Why did Julia feel nervous? What did she tell herself before the meeting? How did she feel after the meeting? Answer in full sentences. For example, she felt nervous because she had an important meeting, not just because of the meeting. Speaking in full sentences helps you build fluency and trains your brain to think in complete ideas. Now let's move to the evening. After work, Julia feels tired, but also satisfied. She goes home, changes into comfortable clothes, and says, "What a long day." That is another very natural expression. What a long day. It shows emotion, but in a simple way. Repeat it. What a long day. You can also say, what a busy day, what a stressful day, or what a productive day. Now imagine your own day. How was it? Say one sentence starting with, what a maybe, what a crazy day, or what a good day. Take a small pause now. Breathe and think in English for a few seconds. What did you do today? Who did you talk to? What made you happy or stressed? Try to describe it in simple English without translating. Just speak naturally. Remember, fluency is not about speaking fast. It's about speaking smoothly, calmly, clearly. We are just getting started, and already you are training your listening, your speaking, your thinking, all together. Keep focusing, keep responding, and don't worry about small mistakes. They are part of learning. Let's continue building your listening and conversational skills slowly, naturally, and with confidence. Now, we're going to move into everyday social conversations, the kind of small talk that happens before meetings, during lunch breaks, while waiting in line, or when you randomly meet someone you know. Small talk may seem simple, but for many English learners, it feels challenging because you don't always know what to say next or how to keep the conversation going. So today, we will practice exactly that. Imagine Julia is at a cafe after work. She's waiting for her friend Emma while she's standing. Auction line. The person behind her smiles and says, "This place is always busy in the evenings." Julia turns and replies, "Yes, especially on Fridays. I guess everyone needs coffee after a long week." Notice how natural that sounds. It's not complicated English, but it's very real. I guess everyone needs coffee after a long week. That phrase, I guess, is extremely useful. It makes your sentence softer, more conversational. Repeat after me. I guess everyone needs coffee after a long week. I guess it depends on the situation. I guess you're right. Good. Now let's continue the scene. The person behind her says, "Do you come here often?" Julia smiles and says, "Not really, only when I need a quiet place to relax." Listen carefully to that expression. Not really. It's a very common response when the answer is slightly no, but not completely no. Repeat after me. Not really. Not really. I'm usually too busy. Not really, but sometimes. Now answer this question out loud. Do you go to cafes often? Start with not really or yes, quite often. Remember, speaking full sentences is important. Now Emma arrives. She waves and says, "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible." Julia replies, "No worries. I just got here." No worries is another everyday phrase. It means it's okay. Don't stress about it. Repeat. No worries. No worries. It happens. No worries. I understand. Now let's extend the conversation. Emma sits down and says, "So, how was your day?" Julia takes a breath and says, "It was actually pretty productive. I had an important meeting this morning, and it went better than I expected." That phrase, better than I expected, is powerful. It shows surprise, positive surprise. Repeat after me. It went better than I expected. It was harder than I expected. It was easier than I thought. Now, let's practice comparison in a natural way. Think about your week. Was it busier than last week? Was it more stressful than you expected? I'll say one sentence beginning with, "It was maybe." "It was more tiring than I expected." Or, "It was more interesting than I thought." Excellent. Now let's slow down for listening comprehension again. Listen carefully. Julia met her friend Emma at a cafe after work. Emma apologized for being late, but Julia told her not to worry. They talked about their day, and Julia said her meeting went better than she expected. Now answer these questions. Why did Emma apologize? Or how did Julia respond? How did Julia describe her meeting? Answer in full sentences. Slowly, clearly. Good. Now let's practice deeper conversation. Emma asks Julia, "Do you ever feel overwhelmed at work?" Julia pauses and says, "Sometimes, especially when I have too many deadlines at the same time, but I try to stay organized." Notice the structure. Sometimes, especially when. This is very useful for B1 and B2 learners. Repeat after me. Sometimes, especially when I'm tired. Sometimes, especially when I have a lot to do. Sometimes, or especially when things don't go as planned. Now answer personally. Do you ever feel overwhelmed? Start with sometimes and explain why. Take your time. Very good. Emma then says, "How do you usually deal with stress?" Julia replies, "I usually take short breaks or go for a walk. It helps me clear my mind." At that expression, clear my mind, means to relax mentally, to reduce stress. Repeat, it helps me clear my mind. I need something to clear my mind. Going outside helps me clear my mind. Now answer this. What helps you clear your mind? Maybe listening to music, exercising, talking to a friend, watching a movie. Speak it out loud. Now let's move into opinion sharing. Emma says, I think work-life balance is really important. Julia nods and replies, I completely agree. If you work all the time, you'll burn out. That phrase, I completely agree, is strong agreement. You can also say, I agree to some extent, if you partially agree. Repeat after me. I completely agree. I agree to some extent. I'm not sure I agree. Now I want you to practice expressing your opinion. Finish this sentence. I think daily English practice is important because, say it out loud. Maybe. Because it improves fluency. Or because consistency builds confidence. Yes. Exactly. Now we'll do a short role play style listening. I will read a short conversation. And after that, you will repeat selected sentences. Emma says, Do you have any plans for the weekend? Julia replies, Not much. I might visit my parents or just relax at home. Emma says, That sounds nice. Sometimes doing nothing is the best plan. Julia laughs and says, Exactly. I need some time to recharge. Now repeat. I might visit my parents. Sometimes doing nothing is the best plan. I need some time to recharge. Recharge is a very useful word. It means to regain energy, physically or emotionally. Now answer this question. What do you do to recharge? Speak clearly. Don't rush. Very good. Now let's build a longer speaking exercise. I want you to imagine this scenario. You meet a friend you haven't seen in months. The friend says, It's been a while. What have you been up to? How would you answer? Use present perfect if you can. For example, I've been working on a new project. I've been studying a lot recently. I've been trying to improve my English. Now say your own answer. Take a small pause, think, and speak. Excellent work. Now let's do one more listening paragraph. After their coffee, Julia and Emma decided to take a short walk. The weather was cool but pleasant. They talked about future goals. Emma said she wanted to learn a new skill this year. Julia said she wanted to focus more on personal growth. They both agreed that small daily efforts make a big difference over time. Now answer. What did they do after coffee? What did Emma want to learn? What did Julia want to focus on? Answer in full sentences. You're doing very well. Keep going. The key at B1 and B2 level is not just understanding the words, but understanding the flow, the connection, the emotion behind the sentences. We will continue exploring more daily life conversations, deeper responses, and more advanced expressions. Step by step, stay focused, breathe, and keep speaking along with me. Now we are going to move a little deeper into real-life conversations, the kind that require you to explain things and clearly share experiences and respond naturally without overthinking every word. At B1 and B2 level, this is where you start developing true conversational strength. You are not just answering simple questions anymore. You are describing, comparing, explaining, and reacting. Let's imagine a new situation. Julia is talking to a colleague during lunch break. The colleague asks, "Have you ever thought about changing your career?" Julia pauses for a moment and says, "To be honest, I have thought about it a few times, especially when I felt stuck. But overall, I like what I do." Listen carefully to that phrase. To be honest, this is a very natural way to introduce a real opinion or feeling. It makes your answer sound sincere and conversational. Repeat after me. To be honest. To be honest, I'm not sure. To be honest, I've never tried that. Now answer this question personally. Have you ever thought about making a big change in your life? Start your answer with "to be honest" and explain briefly. Take your time. Speak clearly. Very good. The colleague continues and says, "What makes you feel stuck sometimes?" Julia replies, "Usually, when I'm doing the same tasks again and again. Without learning anything new, I start to feel unmotivated." Notice the structure. Usually, when. This helps you explain patterns in your life. Repeat after me. Usually, when I don't get enough sleep, I feel tired all day. Usually, when I practice English regularly, I feel more confident. Usually, when things don't go as planned, I try to stay calm. Now make your own sentence beginning with usually, when. Speak it slowly. Excellent. Now let's practice expressing cause and effect in a more natural way. The colleague says, "So what do you do when you feel unmotivated?" Julia answers, "I try to set small goals, because if the goal is too big, I get overwhelmed." That word overwhelmed is very common at B2 level. It describes a feeling when something feels too much to handle. Repeat after me. If the goal is too big, I get overwhelmed. When I have too many responsibilities, I feel overwhelmed. Breaking tasks into smaller steps helps me avoid feeling overwhelmed. Now respond to this. What do you do when you feel overwhelmed? Use "when I feel overwhelmed" at the beginning of your sentence. Pause, think, and answer. Good. Now let's build a slightly longer listening passage. Listen carefully. During lunch, Julia and her colleague talked about personal growth. Julia explained that she tries to learn something new every few months. Sometimes it's a small skill, like cooking a new recipe, and sometimes it's something bigger, like improving her public speaking. She believes that continuous learning keeps her motivated and prevents her from feeling stuck. Now answer these questions in full sentences. What does Julia try to do every few months? Why does she believe continuous learning is important? Give complete answers. Very good. Now let's practice describing experiences in more detail. Imagine someone asks you, "What have you been focusing on lately?" Instead of giving a short answer, try to expand your response. For example, "Lately, I've been focusing on improving my English listening skills. I try to practice at least 20 minutes every day, and I've noticed that I understand conversations much better now." Notice how that answer has 3 parts: what you are doing, how often, and the result. Now create your own answer. Start with, "Lately, I've been focusing on," then add details. Speak it out loud. Excellent work. Now let's shift to another common daily topic. Making decisions. Julia's colleague asks, "How do you usually make important decisions?" Julia responds, "I usually think about the long-term impact, and I try not to make decisions when I'm too emotional." That phrase, long-term impact, is useful for more advanced conversation. It shows you can think beyond the present moment. Repeat after me. I try to think about the long-term impact. I try not to make decisions when I'm too emotional. It's important to stay objective. Now answer this. Do you make decisions quickly or do you take your time? Explain your answer in 2 sentences. Take a pause. Very good. Now we will practice reacting in conversation. Sometimes in English, you need short reactions to show you are listening. For example, "That makes sense." "I see what you mean." "That's a good point." Repeat after me. "That makes sense." "I see what you mean." "That's a good point." Now imagine someone says, "Daily practice is more important than talent." How would you react? Maybe. "That makes sense because practice builds consistency." Or, "I see what you mean, but I think talent also plays a role." Try responding naturally. Good. Now let's practice telling a short story. I will give you a model first. Last year, Julia decided to take a short public speaking course. At first, she felt nervous speaking in front of strangers, but after a few sessions, she became more comfortable. By the end of the course, she realized that most of her fear came from overthinking, not from reality. Now answer these questions. Why did Julia take the course? How did she feel at first? What did she realize at the end? Or answer in full sentences. Now it's your turn to create a mini story. Think about something new you tried in the past, maybe a class, a new hobby, or a new habit. Start like this. Last year, or a few months ago. Describe how you felt at the beginning and how you felt later. Take your time. Speak at least 3 sentences. Very good. Now let's deepen your listening ability with a slightly longer paragraph. One evening, Julia was reflecting on her progress. She realized that improving her communication skills didn't happen overnight. It required patience, regular practice, and the willingness to make mistakes. At times, she felt frustrated, especially when she couldn't express herself clearly. But instead of giving up, she kept practicing. And slowly, she became more confident. Now answer. Did Julia improve overnight? How did she feel sometimes? What helped her become more confident? Remember, B1 and B2 fluency is about understanding not only words, but ideas, emotions, and connections. You are training your brain to process English naturally, without translating everything into your first language. Take a small pause now. Close your eyes if you want, and think in English for a few seconds. What are you proud of in your learning journey? And say it in one full sentence. Maybe. I'm proud that I didn't give up. Or, I'm proud that I practice consistently. Speak it clearly. You're building something important, step by step, conversation by conversation. And we will continue expanding your listening, your vocabulary, and your speaking confidence in the next section. Now we are going to move into a very common situation that happens almost every day: giving and asking for advice. At B1 and B2 level, you need to know how to explain the problem clearly and how to respond in a supportive and natural way. Advice conversations are very important because they require you to express opinions carefully, use conditional sentences, and show empathy. Imagine Julia is talking to her friend Daniel on the phone. Daniel sounds stressed. He says, "I've been thinking about changing jobs, but I'm not sure if it's the right decision." Julia listens carefully and replies, "That sounds like a big decision. What's making you think about it changing?" Notice how she doesn't immediately give advice. She first asks a question to understand the situation better. This is very natural in English conversation. Repeat after me. That sounds like a big decision. What's making you think about it? Can you tell me more about it? Now imagine someone tells you, "I'm thinking about moving to another city." How would you respond? Or start with, "That sounds," or "What's making you?" Take your time. Good. Daniel continues, "I feel like I'm not growing anymore. I've been doing the same work for 3 years, and I don't feel challenged." Julia replies, "I see what you mean. Sometimes when we stop learning, we start feeling stuck." That phrase, "I see what you mean," shows understanding. It's very useful when someone explains their feelings. Repeat after me. I see what you mean. Sometimes we need a change. It's important to feel challenged. Now answer this question. Have you ever felt like you needed a change in your life? I use at least 2 sentences. Pause and respond. Very good. Now Julia gives advice. She says, "If I were you, I would start by updating my resume and exploring other options. That way, you can see what opportunities are available." Listen carefully to the structure. If I were you, I would. This is a very common way to give advice in English. Repeat after me. If I were you, I would think about it carefully. If I were you, I would talk to my manager first. If I were you, I would take some time before deciding. Now imagine your friend says, "I'm not confident speaking English in public." What advice would you give? I start with, "If I were you, speak clearly. Excellent." Now Daniel says, "I'm just afraid of making the wrong decision." Julia replies, "That's completely normal. Everyone feels that way sometimes. But remember, no decision is permanent. You can always adjust later." Notice how Julia reassures him. She doesn't say, "Don't worry." Instead, she says, "That's completely normal." This makes the conversation more supportive. Repeat after me. That's completely normal. Everyone feels that way. Sometimes you can always adjust later. Now answer this question. When was the last time you felt unsure about something? Now start with, "I felt unsure when," and explain briefly. Take your time. Very good. Now let's practice a listening comprehension paragraph. Daniel has been working at the same company for 3 years. Recently, he started feeling unchallenged and bored. He's considering changing jobs, but he's afraid of making a mistake. Julia suggests that he explore other opportunities before making a final decision. Now answer in full sentences. Why does Daniel want to change jobs? What is he afraid of? Duh. What does Julia suggest? Wah. Good. Now we are going to practice using conditionals more naturally. These are very important at B2 level. Julia continues and says, if you stay in your current job, you might continue feeling stuck. But if you look for new opportunities, you might discover something better. Repeat after me. If you practice every day, you will improve. If you avoid speaking, you won't gain confidence. If you step out of your comfort zone, you will grow. Now create your own conditional sentence. On about learning English, start with, if I pause, think, and speak. Excellent. Now let's move to another common daily conversation, expressing regret. Daniel says, I sometimes wish I had taken more risks earlier in my career. Julia replies, it's easy to think that way, but you made the best decisions you could at the time. The phrase, I wish I had, is used to express regret about the past. Repeat after me. I wish I had started earlier. I wish I had practiced more. I wish I had all been more confident. Now complete this sentence about yourself. I wish I had. Speak it clearly. Very good. Now let's practice reassuring someone. Julia says, don't be too hard on yourself. You've achieved a lot already. Don't be too hard on yourself is a very natural supportive phrase. Repeat after me. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're doing better than you think. Progress takes time. Now imagine a friend says, I feel like I'm not improving. How would you respond supportively? Use at least 2 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's deepen your listening skills with a slightly longer paragraph. After their conversation, Daniel felt more relaxed. He realized that fear was stopping him from exploring new possibilities. Instead of making a sudden decision, he decided to research other companies, update his resume, and speak to a few professionals in his field. For the first time in weeks, he felt hopeful about his future. Now answer these questions. Why did Daniel feel more relaxed? What steps did he decide to take? How did he feel at the end? Yeah. Answer in complete sentences. Very good. Now I want you to practice summarizing. This is important at B2 level. In 2 or 3 sentences. Summarize Daniel's situation and Julia's advice. Speak it out loud. Take your time. Excellent. Now let's shift to another daily topic. Dealing with unexpected problems. Imagine Julia wakes up one morning and her internet is not working. She has an important online meeting in 1 hour. She feels frustrated and says, this is the worst timing possible. That expression, the worst timing possible, shows strong frustration. Repeat after me. This is the worst timing possible. I can't believe this is happening right now. Why today of all days? Now imagine something inconvenient happened to you recently. Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause. Good. Julia then takes a deep breath and says, okay, let's not panic. There must be a solution. Notice the self-talk. Let's not panic. This is something people say to themselves when they want to stay calm. Repeat. Let's not panic. There must be a solution. I'll figure this out. Now create your own calm self-talk sentence for a stressful moment. Speak clearly. You are not just learning vocabulary, you are learning how English works in real emotional situations, how people think, how they react, how they support others. Take a small pause now, breathe slowly, and reflect in English. What would you do if your plans suddenly changed? Try to answer in at least 3 sentences. Very good. Now let's move into another very realistic daily life situation, making plans and handling changes. This is something that happens all the time, with friends, with family, at work, and even in small casual conversations. At B1 and B2 level, you need to feel comfortable suggesting ideas, responding to suggestions, and adjusting plans naturally. Imagine Julia is texting her friend Mark. They are trying to plan dinner for Saturday evening. Mark writes, "Are you free this Saturday?" Julia replies, "I think so. Let me double check my schedule." Notice that phrase, "let me double check." It sounds more natural than just saying, "I'll check." It shows politeness and intention. Repeat after me. Let me double check. Let me think about it. Let me get back to you. Now answer this question out loud. If someone invites you somewhere and you're not completely sure, what would you say? And start with, "Let me take your time." Very good. Mark replies, "Great. I was thinking we could try that new Italian restaurant downtown." Julia answers, "That sounds like a good idea. I've heard good things about it." "That sounds like a good idea" is one of the most useful conversational responses. It shows positive reaction without being too strong. Repeat after me. That sounds like a good idea. That sounds interesting. That sounds fun. Now imagine your friend says, "Let's go. Hiking this weekend." How would you respond positively? A pause and answer, "Excellent." But then Julia checks her calendar and realizes she already promised her sister she would visit. She writes back, "Actually, I just remembered. I have family plans that evening. I'm really sorry." Listen carefully to that structure. Actually, I just remembered. This is a polite way to correct yourself or change the situation. Repeat after me. Actually, I just remembered. Actually, something came up. Actually, I won't be able to make it. Now imagine. You need to cancel a plan politely. What would you say? I'll use one of those phrases. Speak clearly. Very good. Mark replies, "No problem at all. We can do it another time." Julia responds, "That would be great. How about next weekend?" Notice how they quickly find another solution. This is very natural conversational behavior. Repeat after me. No problem at all. We can do it another time. How about next weekend? Now practice making a suggestion. Finish this sentence. How about maybe? How about meeting on Sunday? Or how about going earlier in the day? Say it out loud. Good. Now let's practice a slightly longer listening passage. Julia and Mark were planning dinner for Saturday. At first, Julia thought she was free, but after checking her schedule, she realized she had family plans. She apologized, and Mark suggested meeting another time. In the end, they agreed to plan something for the following weekend. Now answer these questions. Why couldn't Julia go on Saturday? How did Mark react? What did they decide in the end? Jawab. Answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now we're going to practice something important at B2 level, negotiating politely. Imagine Julia's colleague says, "Can you finish this report by tomorrow morning?" Julia feels it might be difficult. She replies, "I'll do my best, but tomorrow morning might be a bit tight. Would it be possible to submit it in the afternoon instead?" Notice how she doesn't simply say no. She explains and suggests an alternative. Repeat after me. Tomorrow morning might be a bit tight. Would it be possible to? I'll do my best. Now imagine someone asks you to do something difficult in a short time. How would you respond politely? Use at least 2 sentences. Pause. Very good. Now let's explore expressing uncertainty. Julia says, "I'm not entirely sure if I can commit to that yet." "I'm not entirely sure" is a softer and more advanced way to say, "I don't know." Repeat after me. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not completely certain. I need a bit more time to decide. Now answer this. When was the last time you felt unsure about something? Use one of those phrases. Speak slowly. Excellent. Now let's move into describing a busy day in detail. Listen carefully. Yesterday, Julia had a packed schedule. She had back-to-back meetings in the morning, followed by a training session in the afternoon. By the time she got home, she felt exhausted, but satisfied, because she managed to complete everything on her to-do list. Now answer these questions. What kind of day did Julia have? How did she feel at the end of the day? Why did she feel satisfied? Good. Now it's your turn. Describe your busiest day recently. Start with yesterday or last week. Include at least 3 details. Pause, think, and speak. Very good. Now let's practice expressing preference. Julia tells her friend, "I'd rather stay home tonight than go out. I'm too tired." I'd rather is very useful for expressing preference. Repeat after me. I'd rather stay home. I'd rather wake up early. I'd rather practice a little every day. Now finish this sentence. I'd rather. Say it clearly. Excellent. Now let's practice giving reasons with since and because. Julia says, "I'm staying home tonight because I need to rest. Since it's been a long week, I just want to relax." Repeat after me. I'm practicing daily because I want to improve. Since I have an exam tomorrow, I need to study. Now create your own sentence using because or since. Pause. Very good. Now we'll do a short reflective exercise. Think about your communication skills in English. What do you feel more confident about now compared to last year? Maybe listening, maybe speaking, maybe understanding conversations. Start with compared to last year and continue. Speak it slowly. Excellent work. Now, let's build a slightly more advanced listening passage for B2 level. Over the past year, Julia has noticed significant improvement in her communication skills. At first, she struggled to express complex ideas clearly, but through consistent practice, she became more comfortable sharing her thoughts. She also realized that confidence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from repetition and exposure. The more she spoke, the more natural it felt. Now answer. What did Julia struggle with at first? How did she improve? What did she realize about confidence? Answer in full sentences. Very good. Take a small pause now. Breathe and reflect silently in English for a few seconds. What is one area you still want to improve? Listening speed, vocabulary range, speaking fluency. Now say it out loud in one full sentence. You are strengthening your ability to think, respond, explain, and reflect in English. Now let's move into a slightly more advanced type of conversation, expressing opinions in discussions, especially when people have different viewpoints. At B1 and B2 level, this is where your English becomes more dynamic, because real conversations are not always about daily routines. Sometimes they involve ideas, preferences, and even disagreements. Imagine Julia is having a discussion with her colleagues about remote work. One colleague says, "I think working from home is much more productive." Another colleague responds, "I'm not so sure. I feel more focused in the office." Julia joins the conversation and says, "I think it really depends on the person. Some people work better at home, while others prefer a structured office environment." Notice how Julia doesn't say one side is right or wrong. She uses a balanced phrase. It really depends on the person. This is extremely useful at B2 level. Repeat after me. It really depends on the situation. It depends on the person. It depends on what you mean. Now answer this question. Do you think working from home is better than working in an office? Start with "It depends" and explain your reasoning. Take your time. Very good. Now let's practice agreeing and disagreeing politely. One colleague says, "Working from home saves a lot of time." Julia replies, "That's true. You don't have to commute, but sometimes it's harder to separate work from personal life." Notice the structure. That's true, but. This is a very natural way to partially agree and then add another perspective. Repeat after me. That's true, but. I understand your point. However, you may be right. But now imagine someone says, "Learning English grammar is more important than speaking practice." How would you respond politely if you disagree? Use one of those phrases. Pause and speak. Excellent. Now let's move into expressing strong opinions. It depends on the person. It depends on what you mean. Now answer this question. Do you think working from home is better than working in an office? Start with "It depends" and explain your reasoning. Take your time. Very good. Now let's practice agreeing and disagreeing politely. One colleague says, "Working from home saves a lot of time." Julia replies, "That's true. You don't have to commute, but sometimes it's harder to separate work from personal life." Notice the structure. That's true, but. This is a very natural way to partially agree and then add another perspective. Repeat after me. That's true, but. I understand your point. However, you may be right. But now imagine someone says, "Learning English grammar is more important than speaking practice." How would you respond politely if you disagree? Use one of those phrases. Pause and speak. Excellent. Now let's move into expressing strong opinions. Julia says, Personally, I believe communication skills are more important than technical skills in many situations, because if you can't express your ideas clearly, people may not understand your abilities. Notice how she begins with personally, I believe. This makes the opinion sound thoughtful and personal. Repeat after me. Personally, I believe, in my opinion, from our perspective. Now complete this sentence. In my opinion, daily listening practice is important because speak it clearly. Very good. Now let's deepen your listening comprehension with a longer discussion style paragraph. During the meeting, the team discussed the advantages and disadvantages of remote work. Some employees appreciated the flexibility and reduced commuting time, while others missed face-to-face interaction and spontaneous conversations with colleagues. Julia pointed out that productivity can vary depending on personality and work habits. In the end, the team agreed that a hybrid model might be the best solution, combining the benefits of both approaches. Now answer these questions. What were some advantages of remote work? What did some employees miss? What solution did the team consider? Answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now we will practice giving examples to support your opinion. Julia continues and says, for example, when I work from home, I can focus deeply without interruptions. On the other hand, when I'm in the office, I can collaborate more easily. Notice the connectors. For example, and on the other hand, these help organize your ideas clearly. Repeat after me. For example, on the other hand, in contrast. Now answer this question using for an example. Why is daily English listening helpful? Watch, pause. Very good. Now let's practice describing habits in more detail. Julia says, over the past few months, I've developed a habit of listening to English podcasts every morning. At first, it was challenging, but gradually, I became more comfortable understanding natural speech. Notice the time expression. Over the past few months, it shows duration up to now. Repeat after me. Over the past few months, over the past year, gradually, I improved. Now create your own sentence. I'm starting with, over the past few months, speak clearly. Excellent. Now let's explore expressing contrast with even though and although. Julia says, even though I was tired, I decided to practice English for 20 minutes. Although it was difficult at first, I felt proud afterward. Repeat after me. Even though I was nervous, I gave the presentation. Although it was challenging, I didn't give up. Now create your own sentence using even though or although. Pause. Very good. Now let's move into a slightly emotional conversation. Julia's friend says, sometimes I feel like I'm not improving fast enough. Julia responds, I know how you feel, but progress isn't always visible immediately. Sometimes it takes time before you notice real change. I know how you feel is a powerful empathetic phrase. Repeat after me. I know how you feel. It takes time. Don't compare yourself to others. Now imagine a friend says, I'm frustrated with my progress. How would you respond empathetically? You use at least 2 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's build a longer reflective listening passage. One evening, Julia was thinking about her English journey. She remembered how difficult it used to be to follow fast conversations. She often felt lost and confused. However, she kept practicing daily, even when she didn't see immediate results. Over time, her listening improved significantly, and she started understanding conversations without translating. That was the moment she realized that consistency matters more than intensity. Now answer these questions. What did Julia struggle with in the past? What helped her improve? What did she realize about consistency? Answer in full sentences. Very good. Now we're going to practice summarizing again. In 2 or 3 sentences, explain Julia's improvement journey. Take your time. Excellent. Now let's practice thinking spontaneously. I will give you a short statement, and you respond naturally. Statement. Learning a language is a long-term investment. How would you respond? Do you agree? Why or why not? Speak for at least 3 sentences. Pause. Very good. Take a deep breath now. You are training your ability to discuss ideas, support opinions, respond politely, and express emotions. At B1 and B2 level, this is exactly what builds real conversational confidence. Now let's move into another very common real-life situation: solving problems and handling misunderstandings. This is extremely important at B1 and B2 level because real conversations are not always smooth. Sometimes people misunderstand you. Sometimes you don't understand them. And sometimes something simply goes wrong. Being able to respond calmly and clearly in these moments shows real language confidence. Imagine Julia ordered something online, and when the package arrived, it wasn't what she expected. She opens the box, looks at the item, and says, "This isn't what I ordered." Notice how simple and direct that sentence is. Repeat after me. This isn't what I ordered. There seems to be a mistake. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Now imagine you received the wrong product. What would you say? Start with, there seems to be, pause. Very good. Julia decides to call customer service. The representative answers and says, "How can I help you today?" Julia replies calmly, "Hi, I recently received my order, but there appears to be a problem." That appears to be sounds slightly more formal than there is. It's useful in professional situations. Repeat after me. There appears to be a problem. I'd like to clarify something. Could you please check that for me? Now imagine you need help with something important. How would you ask politely? You use could you please. Speak clearly. Excellent. Now let's continue this scenario. The representative says, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." Julia responds, "I understand mistakes happen. I just wanted to make sure it gets resolved." Notice how Julia stays polite and calm. She doesn't accuse. She explains. Repeat after me. I understand mistakes happen. I just want to make sure. I'd appreciate your help. Now answer this question. How do you usually react when something goes wrong? And start with usually. When something goes wrong, pause. Very good. Now let's practice active listening in conversation. Sometimes when someone explains something complicated, you may not understand everything. Instead of staying silent, you can say, "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Do you mean that?" So what you're saying is, these phrases show that you are engaged and trying to understand. Repeat after me. Could you repeat that? Do you mean that? So what you're saying, you is. Now imagine someone explains a difficult idea quickly. What would you say to clarify? Pause. Excellent. Now let's move into a workplace misunderstanding scenario. Julia sends an email to her colleague, but later realizes she forgot to attach the file. The colleague replies, "I think the attachment is missing." Julia quickly responds, "Oh, thank you for pointing that out. I must have forgotten to attach it." "That was my mistake," is another useful phrase. Repeat after me. "That was my mistake. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate you telling me." Now imagine you forgot to include something important. How would you respond? Use at least 2 sentences. Pause. Very good. Now let's practice expressing frustration in a controlled way. Julia says, "To be honest, this situation is a bit frustrating, but I'm sure we can solve it." Notice how she expresses emotion, but still stays constructive. Repeat after me. "This is a bit frustrating. I'm sure we can find a solution. Let's figure this out." Now imagine you are dealing with a delay or problem. How would you stay positive? I use one of those phrases. Pause. Excellent. Now let's build a longer listening passage for comprehension. Earlier this week, Julia experienced a misunderstanding at work. She thought the meeting was scheduled for Friday, but it was actually on Thursday. When she realized the mistake, she immediately contacted her manager and apologized. Instead of blaming anyone, she explained the confusion clearly and offered to reschedule. Her manager appreciated her honesty and professionalism. Now answer these questions in full sentences. What was the misunderstanding about? How did Julia handle the situation? How did her manager react? Very good. Now we are going to practice explaining a problem step by step. Imagine your internet stopped working during an important call. How would you explain the situation afterward? You could say, "During the meeting, my connection suddenly dropped. I tried reconnecting several times, but it didn't work. I apologize for the interruption. Repeat after me. My connection suddenly dropped. I tried reconnecting. I apologize for the interruption." Now create your own short explanation for a technical problem. Speak at least 3 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's move into expressing relief. After the problem is solved, Julia says, "I'm glad that's sorted." Out. That sorted out means the issue is resolved. Repeat after me. I'm glad that's sorted out. That's a relief. I'm happy we solved it. Now answer this. When was the last time you felt relieved about something? Start with, I felt relieved when... Pause. Very good. Now let's practice describing emotional reactions more deeply. At first, Julia felt stressed about the misunderstanding. Her heart was beating faster, and she kept thinking about the consequences. However, once she explained the situation honestly, she felt much calmer. She realized that communication often solves problems faster than silence. Now answer these questions. How did Julia feel at first? What helped her feel calmer? What did she realize about communication? Answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now we're going to do a short, spontaneous speaking exercise. I will give you a situation, and you respond naturally. Situation. You accidentally interrupted someone during a conversation. What would you say? Maybe, "Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting. Please go ahead." Now say your own version. Pause. Very good. Now another situation. You misunderstood instructions and completed the wrong task. What would you say? Pause. Excellent. You are training yourself to handle real-life conversations, not just ideal situations, but also unexpected moments. This kind of practice strengthens your listening because you must understand the problem, and it strengthens your speaking because you must respond clearly and calmly. Take a small breath now and reflect. How confident do you feel handling misunderstandings in English? Bio. Say one full sentence starting with, I feel excellent. Now we're going to focus on storytelling in a more natural and detailed way, because storytelling is one of the strongest skills you can develop at B1 and B2 level. When you tell a story clearly, with emotion, with sequence, and with reflection, you show real fluency. In everyday life, people often say, "You won't believe what happened to me today," or "Something interesting happened yesterday." These are natural conversation starters. Repeat after me. You won't believe what happened. Something interesting happened. Let me tell you what happened. Now imagine you are talking to a friend and you want to tell a small story from your day. Start with one of those phrases and continue for at least 3 sentences. Pause. Very good. Now listen carefully to this short story. Yesterday evening, Julia was on her way home when she realized she had left her wallet at the office. At first, she felt annoyed with herself. She thought, how could I forget something so important? She considered going back immediately, but then she remembered that the office was already closed. Instead, she called her colleague, who kindly agreed to keep the wallet safe until the next day. Now answer these questions in full sentences. Where did Julia leave her wallet? How did she feel at first? What solution did she find? Ciao. Excellent. Now let's analyze the structure of this story. Notice how it has a beginning, a problem, a reaction, and a solution. That structure helps your story sound complete. Repeat after me. At first, I felt, then I realized. In the end, everything worked out. Now tell your own mini story using that structure. Start with yesterday or last week. Describe a small problem and how it was solved. Take your time. Very good. Now let's make storytelling slightly more descriptive. Julia once missed an important bus while traveling. She had carefully planned her day, but because she underestimated the traffic, she arrived at the station 2 minutes too late. As the bus drove away, she felt disappointed and frustrated. However, instead of blaming herself, she took a deep breath, checked the schedule, and found another bus an hour later. She decided to use that extra hour to explore a nearby cafe. In the end, what felt like a mistake turned into a pleasant surprise. Now answer. Why did Julia miss the bus? How did she feel when the bus left? What did she do during the extra hour? Answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now let's practice using time connectors to organize your stories. First, after that. Meanwhile, eventually, repeat after me. First, I checked the schedule. After that, I called my friend. Eventually, everything was fine. Now create your own short sequence using first, after that, eventually. Pause. Very good. Now let's move into describing emotions in more detail. Instead of saying only, I was happy, you can say, I felt relieved and grateful. Instead of, I was nervous, you can say, I felt anxious and uncertain. Repeat after me. I felt relieved. I felt disappointed. I felt uncertain. Now describe a recent emotional moment. Use at least 2 adjectives. Pause. Excellent. Now we're going to practice listening at a slightly faster narrative flow. A few months ago, Julia decided to challenge herself by joining a public speaking event. Even though she was nervous, she prepared thoroughly for weeks. On the day of the event, her hands were shaking slightly, but once she started speaking, she found her rhythm. The audience listened attentively, and by the end of her speech, she received positive feedback. That experience taught her that fear often feels bigger than reality. Now answer these questions. What challenge did Julia take on? How did she feel before speaking? What did she learn from the experience? Very good. Now it's your turn to tell a growth story. Think about a time when you faced a fear. It could be related to English, school, work, or personal life. Start with a few months ago or last year. Describe what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. Take your time. Speak slowly. Excellent. Now let's practice adding reflection to your story. Reflection means explaining what you learned. For example, Julia might say, looking back, I realized that I was stronger than I thought, or that experience taught me to trust myself more. Repeat after me. Looking back, I realize that experience taught me. I learned that. Now, finish this sentence. I learned that. Pause. Very good. Now let's do a longer listening comprehension exercise. Last year, Julia traveled to a new city alone for the first time. She was excited, but also slightly anxious because she had never navigated a foreign place by herself. During the trip, she encountered small challenges, like getting lost once and misunderstanding directions. However, each challenge helped her become more confident. By the end of the trip, she felt proud of herself for stepping outside her comfort zone. Now answer. How did Julia feel at the beginning of the trip? What challenges did she face? How did she feel at the end? Answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now let's practice speaking without preparation. I will give you a simple topic, and you speak for at least 4 sentences. Topic: a memorable day in your life. Begin with, one day I will never forget. And continue. Pause. Very good. Now take a deep breath. You are training fluency. You are training your brain to organize ideas, express emotions, and tell stories clearly. Storytelling is not just for entertainment, it's for connection. When you can or tell your story smoothly, people understand you better, and you feel more confident speaking English. Now we are going to move into a slightly more abstract type of conversation, talking about goals, personal development, and future plans. At B1 and B2 level, this is where your language becomes more thoughtful, more reflective, and more expressive. In real life, people often ask questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or, what are your long-term goals? These questions require more than short answers. They require explanation, structure, and confidence. Imagine Julia is having a conversation with a mentor. The mentor asks, what are you currently working toward? Julia takes a moment and says, right now, I'm focusing on improving my communication skills, especially in professional settings. I want to be able to express my ideas clearly and confidently. Notice how she organizes her response. She says what she's focusing on, and then she explains why. Repeat. Ciao after me. Right now, I'm focusing on, I want to be able to, I'm working toward. Now answer this question out loud. What are you currently working toward in your life? Start with, right now. Take your time. Very good. The mentor continues and asks, what motivates you to keep improving? Julia responds, I think growth gives me a sense of purpose. When I see progress, even small progress, it encourages me to continue. Notice the phrase, a sense of purpose. This is a strong B2 level expression. Repeat after me. It gives me a sense of purpose. Small progress motivates me. It encourages me to continue. Now answer this. What motivates you to... You practice English regularly? Use at least 2 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's practice talking about the future using I hope to and I plan to. Julia says, in the next few years, I hope to become more confident in public speaking. I also plan to take on more leadership responsibilities. Repeat after me. I hope to improve. I plan to, in the next few years. Now complete this sentence. In the next few years, I hope to speak clearly. Very good. Now we're going to practice expressing uncertainty. Talk about the future. Julia says, I'm not exactly sure where life will take me, but I'm open to new opportunities. Notice how that sounds balanced and thoughtful. Repeat after me. I'm not exactly sure. I'm open to new opportunities. I'll see where things go. Now answer this question. Are you certain about your long-term plans, or are you still exploring? Use one of those phrases. Pause. Excellent. Now let's move into a deeper listening passage about personal growth. Over the past few years, Julia has learned that personal growth doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, through daily habits and consistent effort. She used to believe that motivation alone was enough, but she later realized that discipline plays a bigger role. Even on days when she didn't feel inspired, she showed up and practiced. That consistency made all the difference. Now answer these questions. What did Julia realize about motivation? What made the biggest difference in her progress? How did she practice even on difficult days? Answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now let's practice comparing past and present. Julia says, in the past, I used to avoid speaking in English because I was afraid of making mistakes. Now, I try to speak whenever I have the chance, even if I'm not perfect. Repeat after me. In the past, I used to. Now, I try to, even if I'm not perfect. Now describe your own progress using that structure. Start with in the past and compare it to now. Pause. Very good. Now we will practice. Expressing balance in life. Julia reflects and says, I've learned that success is not just about career achievements. It's also about maintaining good relationships, taking care of your health, and finding time to rest. Notice how she expands the idea of success. Repeat after me. It's not just about, it's also about. Maintaining balance is important. Now answer this. What does success mean to you? I use it's not just about, it's also about in your answer. Pause. Excellent. Now let's practice listening to a slightly more advanced paragraph. Last year, Julia experienced a period of self-doubt. She questioned her abilities and wondered whether she was moving in the right direction. However, instead of giving in to negativity, she chose to reflect on her strengths. She sought feedback from trusted colleagues and gradually rebuilt her confidence. That experience taught her that doubt can neither paralyze you or push you to grow, depending on how you respond. Now answer these questions. What did Julia experience last year? How did she rebuild her confidence? What did she learn about doubt? Answer in full sentences. Very good. Now it's your turn to reflect more deeply. Think about a time when you doubted yourself. What helped you overcome that doubt? Start with, there was a time when, and continue for at least 4 sentences. Take your time. Excellent. Now let's practice speaking about long-term dreams. Julia says, one of my biggest dreams is to keep learning throughout my life. I don't want to stop growing, no matter how old I get. Repeat after me. One of my biggest dreams is, I don't want to stop. I want to keep improving. Now finish this sentence. One of my biggest dreams is... Pause. Very good. Take a deep breath now. You are speaking about abstract ideas, growth, doubt, motivation, purpose, dreams. At B2 level, being able to discuss these topics comfortably is a major step forward. Now we are going to practice spontaneous conversation in a more dynamic way. The kind of conversation where you don't have time to prepare your sentences in advance. You simply listen, understand, and respond naturally. This is one of the most important skills for real fluency, because in real life, people don't wait for you to translate in your head. Let's imagine Julia is at a networking event. She meets someone new. The person smiles and says, "Hi, I don't think we've met before. I'm Alex." Julia responds, "Nice to meet you. Alex, I'm Julia. What brings you here tonight?" Notice how she immediately asks a follow-up question. This keeps the conversation flowing. Repeat after me. Nice to meet you. What brings you here? How did you hear about this event? Now imagine you meet someone at an event. What would you say after introducing yourself? Ask a natural follow-up question. Pause. Very good. Alex replies, I recently started working with this company, and I'm trying to connect with new people. Julia says, That's great. Networking can open a lot of doors. What kind of projects are you working on? Listen to that phrase. Networking can open a lot of doors. It's a metaphor. It means networking creates opportunities. Repeat after me. It can open a lot of doors. I'm trying to connect with. What kind of projects are you working on? Now answer this question. What kind of projects are you working on in your life right now? It could be related to work, study, or personal goals. Speak clearly. Excellent. Now let's practice reacting with interest. Alex explains his work. Julia listens and says, That sounds fascinating. How did you get into that field? That sounds fascinating. Show strong interest. Repeat after me. That sounds fascinating. That's really interesting. How did you get started? Now imagine someone tells you about a unique hobby. How would you react? I'd use one of those phrases. Pause. Very good. Now, let's move into handling unexpected questions. Alex suddenly asks, What's been your biggest challenge this year? Julia pauses briefly and answers, I think my biggest challenge has been managing my time effectively. I tend to take on too many responsibilities, and sometimes I struggle to prioritize. Notice how she organizes her answer clearly. She identifies the challenge and then explains it. Repeat after me. My biggest challenge has been. I tend to. Sometimes I struggle to. Now answer the same question personally. What has been your biggest challenge recently? You use at least 3 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's practice speaking about strengths. Alex says, What would you say is your greatest strength? Julia responds, I would say my greatest strength is adaptability. I can adjust quickly when circumstances change. Repeat after me. I would say my greatest strength is I can adjust quickly. I'm good at handling change. Now answer this question. What is one of your strengths? To explain briefly. Pause. Very good. Now let's build a longer listening passage at a natural pace. During the networking event, Julia had several short conversations. At first, she felt slightly uncomfortable speaking to strangers. However, as the evening progressed, she became more relaxed. She realized that most people were just as nervous as she was. By asking simple questions and listening carefully, she managed to build meaningful connections. Now answer these questions. How did Julia feel at the beginning of the event? What changed as the evening progressed? What helped her build connections? Oh, answer in full sentences. Excellent. Now we will practice expressing hesitation naturally. Sometimes in spontaneous conversation, you need a moment to think. Instead of staying silent, you can use fillers. Let me think for a second. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that before. Repeat after me. Let me think for a second. That's a good question. I need a moment to consider that. Now imagine someone asks you a difficult question. How would you buy time? Why, politely, use one of those phrases. Pause. Very good. Now let's practice expressing gratitude in conversation. At the end of the event, Alex says, "It was great talking to you." Julia replies, "Likewise, I really enjoyed our conversation. Let's stay in touch." Repeat after me. It was great talking to you. I really enjoyed our conversation. Let's stay in touch. Now imagine you are ending a pleasant conversation. What would you say? To pause. Excellent. Now let's practice a more advanced reflection. On her way home, Julia thought about the evening. She realized that stepping out of her comfort zone had been worth it. Even though she had felt nervous at first, she gained confidence with each conversation. That experience reminded her that growth often begins with discomfort. Now answer these questions. Why did Julia feel proud of herself? What did she learn about discomfort? Answer in full sentences. Very good. Now it's your turn to reflect. Think about a situation where you stepped out of your comfort zone, maybe speaking English in public, meeting new people, or trying something unfamiliar. Start with, "There was a moment when," and continue for at least 4 sentences. Take your time. Excellent. Now we will practice thinking quickly. I will give you a short prompt, and you respond immediately in 2 or 3 sentences. Prompt 1. Why is daily listening, practice important? Pause and answer. Prompt 2. What do you do when you feel nervous before speaking English? Pause and answer. Prompt 3. What advice would you give to someone at B1 level? Pause and answer. Very good. You are strengthening your ability to respond naturally, without overanalyzing, without long silent pauses. Spontaneous speaking becomes easier when you practice regularly, when you expose yourself to different topics, and when you allow yourself to make small mistakes without fear. Now we are going to practice something slightly more advanced, explaining abstract ideas clearly and in an organized way. At B1 and B2 level, many learners can handle daily conversations, but they feel less confident when talking about concepts like happiness, success, habits, or mindset. So in this section, we'll train your ability to explain ideas step by step in a calm and structured way. Let's imagine Julia is having a thoughtful conversation with a close friend about the meaning of success. Her friend asks, "What does success mean to you?" Julia pauses for a moment and says, "For me, success isn't just about achievements or money. It's more about personal growth, meaningful relationships, and feeling satisfied with the life you're building." Notice how she defines the idea by saying what it is not, and then what it is. That structure helps organize abstract thoughts clearly. Repeat after me. For me, success isn't just about, it's more about feeling satisfied with. Now answer this question. What does success mean to you? Start with, for me, and explain in at least 3 sentences. Pause. Very good. Now her friend responds, "That's interesting. I used to think success was about recognition, but now I'm not so sure." Julia replies, "It's normal for our definitions to change over time. As we grow, our priorities shift." Listen to that phrase. Our priorities shift. It means our focus changes. Repeat after me. Our priorities shift. It's normal for things to change. As we grow, now answer this. Have your priorities changed in the past few years? Start with, in the past, I used to, and compare it with now. Pause. Excellent. Now let's move into explaining habits. Julia says, I've realized that small daily habits shape long-term results. Even something as simple as reading for 10 minutes a day can make a difference over time. Notice how she gives a clear example to support her idea. Repeat after me. Small daily habits. Over time, it can make a difference. Now explain why daily English listening is powerful. Use over. Shout time. In your answer, pause. Very good. Now let's deepen the listening practice with a longer reflective paragraph. A few years ago, Julia believed that motivation was the key to improvement. She would wait until she felt inspired before starting something new. However, she eventually discovered that waiting for motivation often led to inconsistency. Instead, she began focusing on discipline, creating a simple routine, and following it even on days when she didn't feel excited. Over time, that aware routine built confidence and progress, far more than short bursts of motivation ever did. Now answer these questions in full sentences. What did Julia believe in the past? What problem did she notice with motivation? What helped her improve consistently? Why? Excellent. Now let's practice comparing ideas more deeply. Julia might say, motivation is powerful, but discipline is reliable. Repeat after me. Motivation is important, but consistency is essential. Talent can help, but effort matters more. Short-term excitement fades, but long-term habits last. Now create your own comparison sentence using but. Pause. Very good. Now we will practice explaining a personal lesson. Julia says, one important lesson I've learned is that progress isn't always visible immediately. Sometimes you're improving in ways you can't see yet. Repeat after me. One important lesson I've learned is progress isn't always visible. You may not notice it at first. Now complete this sentence. One important lesson I've learned is speak slowly. Excellent. Now let's practice giving structured answers. If someone asks, why do you practice English daily? You could answer like this. First, daily practice builds familiarity with a language. Second, it improves listening speed. And finally, it increases confidence when speaking. Notice how the answer is organized. Progress. Now answer. How does Julia view setbacks now? What changed about her perspective? How did this help her confidence? Answer in full sentences. Very good. Now we're going to practice expressing abstract reflections about language learning. Think about this statement. Language is not just vocabulary and grammar, it's connection. Do you agree? Why or why not? Or speak for at least 4 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now another reflective prompt. How does learning English change the way you see the world? Take your time, think deeply, and respond. Pause. Very good. You are now handling abstract topics, structured explanations, comparisons, and philosophical reflections in English. This level of thinking and speaking shows real progress at B2 level. Take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders and reflect silently for a moment. You are thinking in English. Brock responding in English and organizing complex ideas in English. Now we are going to focus on building speaking endurance, the ability to speak for a longer period of time without losing your flow. At B1 and B2 level, many learners can speak for 1 or 2 sentences comfortably. But when they need to continue for a full minute, they start to hesitate, repeat themselves, or lose confidence. So in this section, we will practice maintaining flow, connecting ideas, and speaking more smoothly. Imagine. Julia is asked to describe a typical productive day in her life. Instead of giving a short answer, she expands naturally. She says, "A productive day for me usually starts early. I like to wake up before the day becomes too busy, so I can organize my thoughts. After having breakfast, I review my priorities and decide what needs immediate attention. Throughout the day, I try to focus on one task at a time because multitasking often reduces efficiency. By the evening, I reflect on what I accomplished and prepare a simple plan for the next day." Notice how she connects ideas smoothly, using phrases like after, throughout the day, by the evening. These transitions help maintain flow. Repeat after me. A productive day for me usually starts throughout the day, by the evening. Now it's your turn. Describe your typical weekday in at least 5 sentences. Try to connect your ideas logically. Pause. Very good. Now let's practice maintaining flow when describing our experience in detail. Julia might say, "Last weekend, I decided to spend some time offline. I turned off my phone notifications and focused on activities that helped me relax. At first, it felt strange not checking my messages, but gradually, I began to enjoy the quiet. I realized how often I get distracted by small interruptions. By the end of the weekend, I felt refreshed and more focused. Now answer these questions in full sentences. Why did Julia turn off her notifications? How did she feel at first? How did she feel by the end? Excellent. Now you try. Describe a recent weekend in detail. Speak for at least 6 sentences. Don't rush. Focus on flow. Pause. Very good. Now we will practice expanding short answers into longer ones. If someone asks, "Do you like learning English?" instead of saying, "Yes." "Oh, I do." You can expand. "Yes, I do enjoy learning English because it allows me to connect with people from different countries. It also gives me access to more information and opportunities. Even though it can be challenging sometimes, I find the process rewarding." Notice how one simple question becomes a complete response. Repeat after me. It allows me to, even though it can be challenging, I find the process. Now answer this question in a longer way. Why is listening practice important? Speak for at least 4 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's practice linking ideas more naturally, using connectors like in addition. As a result, on top of that, Julia might say, daily listening improves comprehension. In addition, it helps you become familiar with natural pronunciation. As a result, you feel more confident in conversations. On top of that, it trains your brain to think directly in English. Repeat after me. In addition, as a result, on top of that. Now explain the benefits of reading in English. Use at least two of those connectors. Pause. Very good. Now we will practice building a longer reflection without stopping. Imagine Julia is asked, "What advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in their learning?" She responds, "I would tell them not to focus only on big milestones. Sometimes progress is happening quietly in the background. Instead of comparing yourself to others, compare yourself to who you were 6 months ago." Try to build a simple daily routine, even if it's just 15 minutes. Over time, those small sessions add up, and you begin to notice real change. Most importantly, don't let temporary frustration convince you to give up. Now, answer this question yourself. What advice would you give to someone learning English at B1 level? You speak for at least 6 sentences. Pause. Excellent. Now let's train your ability to maintain fluency under slight pressure. I will give you a topic, and you speak continuously for about 1 minute. Topic: the importance of stepping outside your comfort zone. Start with, stepping outside your comfort zone is important because, and continue. Pause. Very good. Now another topic: how daily habits shape long-term success. Begin with, daily habits may seem small, but... Pause. Excellent. Now, let's do one final longer listening passage for this section. Over the years, Julia has learned that fluency is not a single achievement, but a continuous process. There isn't one moment when you suddenly become perfect. Instead, fluency grows gradually through repetition, exposure, and practice. Some days feel easier than others, but consistency matters more than perfection. By staying committed to daily listening and speaking, she has built confidence that feels natural rather than forced. Now answer these questions in full sentences. What did Julia learn about fluency? Why does consistency matter more than perfection? How did daily practice affect her confidence? Excellent. Now take a deep breath. Reflect on your own journey. How has your listening improved compared to last year? How has your speaking changed? What are you proud of? Speak your answers slowly, clearly, and confidently. You have practiced listening, reacting, storytelling, abstract thinking, problem solving, spontaneous responses, and extended speaking. This kind of practice builds real conversational strength, not just theoretical knowledge. Continue exposing yourself to English daily, continue responding out loud, and continue challenging yourself gently but consistently. Now we are going to complete this session by strengthening one final skill. Say a sustained, natural conversation without losing clarity. At this level, you already understand a wide range of vocabulary, structures, and expressions. What truly makes a difference now is how smoothly you connect everything together. Let's imagine a longer, continuous conversation. Julia meets her friend after several months. They sit down and begin catching up. Her friend says, "It feels like it's been forever. What have you been up to lately?" Julia responds calmly, "It really has been a while. Lately, I've been focusing a lot on personal development. I've tried to be more consistent with my daily habits, especially when it comes to learning and communication. I realize that small improvements each day build confidence over time. Even if progress feels slow, I remind myself that consistency matters more than speed. Notice how she connects reflection with explanation. Now repeat after me. It feels like it's been forever. Lately, I've been focusing on consistency matters more than speed. Now imagine someone asks you, what have you been working on recently? Respond in at least 5 sentences. Speak without rushing. Pause. Very good. Her friend continues. Have you noticed any changes in yourself? Julia answers thoughtfully. Yes, actually, I have. I've become more patient with myself. In the past, I used to feel frustrated when I didn't see immediate results. But now, I understand that growth takes time. I've also learned to appreciate small wins because they remind me that I'm moving forward. Listen to the contrast between past and present. Repeat after me. In the past, I used to, but now I understand. I've learned to appreciate. Now describe one change you've noticed in yourself over the past year. Use that same structure. Pause. Excellent. Now let's practice a more detailed listening passage to challenge your comprehension. Over the past year, Julia committed herself to daily English listening practice. At first, it felt repetitive and sometimes even tiring. However, she began to notice subtle improvements. She could follow conversations more easily. She needed fewer pauses when speaking, and she felt less anxious about making mistakes. Gradually, her confidence shifted from fragile to steady. She realized that fluency is not about speaking perfectly, but about expressing ideas clearly enough to be understood. Now, answer in full sentences. What improvements did Julia notice? How did her confidence change? What did she realize about fluency? Very good. Now we will practice extended speaking one final time. Imagine someone asks you, why do you continue practicing English even when it feels difficult? Begin with, I continue practicing because, and speak for at least 6 sentences. Include one challenge, one benefit, and one personal reflection. Pause. Excellent. Now let's move into a reflective scenario. One quiet evening. Julia sits by the window and thinks about her journey. She remembers the early days when listening felt overwhelming and speaking felt intimidating. She recalls moments of doubt, moments of hesitation, and even moments when she considered giving up. But she also remembers small victories, understanding a fast conversation for the first time, expressing a complex idea clearly, receiving positive feedback. Those small moments accumulated into real progress. Now answer these questions. What challenges did Julia face in the beginning? What small victories helped her continue? How did those moments affect her progress? Answer clearly and completely. Very good. Now I want you to reflect silently for a few seconds. Think about your own small victories. Maybe you understood a podcast without subtitles. Maybe you had a short conversation in English. Maybe you felt less nervous speaking than before. Now express one of those victories in one full sentence. Pause. Excellent. Now let's practice summarizing your entire learning philosophy in English. Start with, for me, learning English is, and continue for at least 5 sentences. Speak naturally, without worrying about perfection. Focus on clarity and flow. Pause. Very good. Now, one final listening reflection. Fluency is built through exposure, repetition, patience, and courage. Exposure allows you to hear natural rhythm and vocabulary. Repetition strengthens memory and automatic response. Patience keeps you steady during slow progress. And courage allows you to speak even when you feel unsure. When these elements combine, growth becomes an inevitable. Now answer in full sentences. What role does exposure play in fluency? Why is repetition important? How does courage support growth? Oh, excellent. Now take one deep breath and speak one final reflection. Start with, I am becoming more fluent because, and complete it in at least 3 sentences. Pause. Very good. You have practiced sustained listening, spontaneous response, structured explanation, emotional reflection, storytelling, problem solving, abstract discussion, and long-form speaking. All of these together strengthen real conversational English. Thank you so much for spending your time practicing English with me today. I truly appreciate your dedication and your effort. The fact that you stayed until the end shows that you are serious about improving, and that commitment is exactly what leads to real progress. Remember, fluency is not built in a single day. It grows through daily listening, daily speaking, and daily patience. Even when improvement feels slow, your brain is adapting, your understanding is expanding, and your confidence is quietly strengthening. If you found this session helpful, continue making English a part of your daily routine. Listen regularly, speak out loud, reflect in English, and don't be afraid of small mistakes. They are signs that you are trying, and trying is how growth happens. Keep challenging yourself gently. Keep stepping outside your comfort zone. And, most importantly, keep believing that you are capable of reaching a higher level. I'm proud of the effort you're making, and I look forward to practicing with you again very soon.